Hello friends, this is Yrvind, and now I prepared for a box here. This is gonna be the other side of the gimbal for storage. Now I realize this would be a good thing if it doesn't get too much water in there, because the powder is okay, but you know the sardines will get rusty, but I can put them in plastic bag. But still, salt water never dries, you know, so it's kind of messy thing. And here, now I cut up this more, the hatch. I moved it forward maybe 6 centimeters or something like this. So now I'm going to put up a bit of a combing, like this one's. Gonna receive glue, and that's the progress of today. Hello friends, this is Yrvind. And now I told you about second eclipse and how good that was and everything. But now there's no more really much sailing to talk about. But there's a lot of other things been happening to me. So if you go back to 1959, the army started giving me trouble. And then I ran away and the police caught me, and then I was sentenced to prison. But I had time to appeal as a citizen right. So it was in the summer, it was in May, and I thought this is a stupid thing to be in prison in May. Wintertime is much better, and food is better, and Christmas and everything. So I left Sweden, and the police, I didn't come to the prison when I should, you know, so police were starting looking for me. But then I was in Germany. In Germany I had been before, in Hamburg, 1952, with my grandfather, who was the captain in the Merchant Navy. And then my mother had sent me there in 1956 to learn language. And so I spent the summer in Hamburg. So I hitchhiked down there to Hamburg, and that was a good thing. And the same place I lived there in Zerichstrasse, with Stegel, Personal Stegelman. Well, they were happy to see me, and I got a room. And then I needed some money. So I went to the Arbeitsamt, you know, the work employment office, you know. Well, 59 was plenty of work in Germany, you know, the whole country needed to be rebuilding and the economy was good. So I got to work there, not far from where I lived. But then something went wrong with the building, you know, and they stopped work, then had to be another place, you know, so well, that was a bummer. But then one day I walked in the harbor, and it was a very, very hot day, and I was clad like this. The only thing I got a t-shirt, but I got my passport in my pocket, and what did I see? A very small cargo boat flying the Swedish flag. So I started talking to them, and the tide was low down, you know, so it's like about 4 meters in Hamburg, you know, so, and Elbe. So I talked to them, and they say, oh, good. We are looking for one man doing all food, you know, a cook. Well, I said, I don't know how to cook. And they say, we teach you. That's really very simple. If you either, there are 2 ways of doing food: boiling or frying. When you're boiling, you put them in water, and then you pick on it, and when it's soft, it's ready. And you're frying, you put them in the frying pan, and when it's brown, it's ready. Well, I thought, that was not too bad. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. But they said, but we leave in 15 minutes. 15 minutes, I said. That's not much notice. But, you know, I thought, well, I got my t-shirt and I got my passport. Okay, I said, I come. And that was really a small cargo boat, just like less than 500 tons. So they were special regulation. But then when we went out in the Elbe, it really started ruling, you know, and this kitchen was not bigger than this. And finally, you know, we got across the North Sea from Hamburg. We came up to London, the Thames River to London, tied up just near the bridge. But then they got a message. The ship has to go back to Sweden for another cargo. But there the police was waiting for me, so I couldn't go there. I told them that. So, so the first mate went with me to the custom and said, this man like to stay here. And this custom man said, yes, you can stay, you know, but he needs time money. So, but I had only £2. He said, this is too little, you cannot stay in that. So I spoke to the first mate. Hey, give me £10. And we show it to this custom man. And when we went out to the street, I give it back. So we wrote a little paper, I owed him that, and I put in the passport, a stamp, but I could only stay 1 month. Not to work, employed, paid or unpaid. So I thought that's the best thing. But anyway, so we got up in the street, he got the money back, and very luckily, it was the same warm weather as in Hamburg was there, you know. Very nice, you know. In fact, it turned out to be the best summer in 300 years. So I was really lucky. But I had just my t-shirt and I had very little money, you know. But then in the surplus store, I bought a little jacket, you know, for like £0.5, like 10 shillings or what it was, you know. So, and the ship had been with cracked nuts from Russia to London. So I had a bag, you know, there was a cigarette case, you know, like I filled it with a cracked nut and had something to eat. And then I kept walking streets up and down and looking around, you know. I didn't speak one word of this language, you know, because I was dyslectic and couldn't learn. But then I getting a bit more tired, but I think it was maybe 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I saw a policeman coming towards me. I haven't done anything wrong, you know. And then he said something, and suddenly I was grabbed from behind, and they threw me on the ground and held me and searched me. And then they let me up. And they said, who are you, or where come from? And I showed you my passport. I come from Germany this morning. And this had a case of cigarettes there, but it was not cigarettes, it was just cracked nuts. So they thought it was kind of strange. But it turned out, later I found out, the same day or the day before, and one man had killed a policeman. And because at that time in England, the policeman didn't have any weapons, any guns, so killing a policeman was a big crime. And so they were really hunting for him. And now they saw me walking around there, I was the killer. But anyway, they let me go. So it was warm, and I slept on the outside, and I slept on the outside, and did it a little, and then I didn't really know what to do. But then one day, I heard two Swedish girls talking on the street. So I started talking to them. Hello, I said. I'm also Swedish, so they speak to me. And I said, speak to them about where I was and what they did. Well, they said, there is something called Voluntary International Service. I said, what is this? Well, it's mostly like students in the summer. They come together and do good work, you know, like Peace Corps or something like this, you know. And one of the girls knew much about it. She said, it's a place called United Nations Association. And that was the address. So, well, that's good. And they said, you don't need work permit or anything. So I went there. And yeah, sure, you know, I could go there, and it was up in Birmingham. So I hitchhiked up to Birmingham. And there was about 20 people there, and it was a old park, has to be clear, you know, trees to cut down, you know, a house to build, and it was about 20 students, mostly students, well, I think more or less everyone was student, and most of them were girls, and they're going to build. But these students were not very practical, you know. And I was in good shape. I've been in Germany working on this building site, you know, it was tough work. And I was just 20 years old, so strong. And then, after I think about 2 weeks, you know, there was going to be a change. The boss, the work leader, was going away. And I wanted to select another one. And to my surprise, I was selected. So I was, I was the boss. And there was one man coming up from London, who went then in charge of it, called Robin Howard. And the strange thing with him is he'd been in the war. This was not too far away from the war, 1959. And he walked on a mine, and his leg was blown away, you know. So he had artificial legs, and when he was in good company, he used the ones who could bend. Otherwise, he used to have like a short pieces like that. And then he was very short himself. So he could be long man and a short one. And the short one, and he walked like with the sticks, you know, like this, and with the short leg. And he was much shorter than me, and otherwise he was much longer. And he was a good man, you know, and he kind of liked me. But then some people were not there, and then one, I think it was in August and September, one day was very hot. And we were dusty because, you know, we've been working there with the building. And he had a car, he could drive with the hands, you know. It's like the clutch and the accelerator and everything was set in the hand, you know, for handicapped people. He said, Sven, I know a nice place. We go there for lunch. And he was a rich man, I found out. So we went up there, and it was like a castle, and it was like Rolls-Royce cars outside, you know, and I thought, how is this going to happen? And when they saw us dirty and bad clothes, you know, just working clothes coming out, nice people there, they came out like to throw us away, move us away. But then he started speaking. Would you please find us a nice place, you know, near a window? And now I found out, in England, they have upper class and you have lower class. And the upper class speak with one accent, and the lower class with another accent. So, if you speak with the upper class accent, you're treated well. doesn't really matter what kind of clothes you have. So they all bowed and said, well, come along here, you know. And that explained one thing, you know. When I was hitchhiking, I hardly knew any English, you know. But one of the lorry drivers said, oh, you speak such a good English, he said. I wish I could speak as well as you. So I just didn't understand. But that's the pronunciation and those things. So that was the thing. So anyway, now this 1 month was gone. So I told Robin, I have to leave. And he liked me. Because I'm not allowed to stay any longer. Well, I fixed that, he said, you know. We appeal. So he took my passport, put it in a registered letter, and sent it to the Home Office. Say, we don't agree. We like to have longer stay. Well, I didn't think we could do that, you know. But yes, in fact, he was a lawyer, so he knew all about the things. But then after about a month, it came back and said, no, you cannot stay longer. Wow, that's a bummer. I showed him the letter, and I thought no, no problem, he said. We do it again. So he wrote another letter. I put it in a registered letter to the Home Office, and then another month went while I was staying there. And then when that came back, you know, it was okay. But at that time, I came to, this was finished, this in September, the working group. But this at the United Nations Association, he said, I got work for you. And there I was working in the office, so I got paid. In the evening I went to the theater and I spoke to, most was girls there also, because it was the office. And later I found out that this Robin Howard, he had a hotel near the Royal Albert Hall, and he said, no, I go away, you can stay in my flat, and if you need anything from the hotel, just press this button, a man come and does anything you like. And in fact, his grandfather had been Prime Minister in England 3 times during the 1930s. So it was important, man. But anyway, so I was working there, and then now this United Nations Association, they had other voluntary work. So I came to Austria, Wegside, and at that time, I don't know, was it 56? There was a revolution in Hungary, and a lot of American people say, yes, do revolution to them, but it didn't work well, so they have to flee. They went into Austria, and so there was a place for people coming from Hungary. So there I was helping to build houses too. But then, in the end, in December, I thought, now it's time to go back to Sweden to do the prison. So this is a little what happened then, and this is not really sailing, but you know, it kind of shaped my life. So I got to know about England and the upper class, and you could appeal, and well, thank you for this. So part of the combing is coming up now here, and also part of the storage here is coming up. So this is a good thing.